The biggest barrier for a lot of people is money, and not everybody is going to have the tenacity to go out there and absolutely crush it just to go hit this one dream that they have. It might not be a big enough dream for them. It might not have impacted them in a certain way. So I had to figure out a way, how do I get people money? It was not to start a finance company, I'll tell you that. That was not on my radar whatsoever.
Welcome to the Future in Flight podcast. I'm Shawn Staerker, and we're coming to you from a hangar somewhere near the flight line, where the weather is always great and the traffic pattern is not too full. You know, we often hear that money is the biggest barrier keeping people out of the cockpit. But what if that barrier wasn't as insurmountable as it seems? In today's long-form conversation, we're sitting down with Brandon Martini, co-CEO of Stratus Financial, who's made it his mission to help aspiring pilots turn their aviation dreams into reality, one loan at a time. Brandon's journey from flight student using credit cards to fund his training, to flight school owner, to fintech entrepreneur, is about more than just financing aircraft. It's about building pilots. And with my special guest co-host, Jacob Peed, editor-in-chief of Aviation magazine, we're going to explore how he's doing exactly that. But first, if you're looking to make aviation more accessible in your own life, mark your calendars for the Affordable Flying Expo, November 6th through the 8th at the Sun and Fun Aerospace Expo grounds in Lakeland, Florida. Head to affordableflying.net to learn more. Let's go full throttle right into this conversation with Brandon Martini.
Take us to the moment, if you remember it, where aviation first grabbed your attention.
Yeah, absolutely. Aviation's always grabbed my attention since I was a young kid. When I was in high school, I remember, this was just post 9/11. So I was in high school and I'm looking at all this patriotism and all this really want to help your country. And I respect everybody who went there and did all of that. I ended up not going, but I did talk to all the recruiters. I wanted to become a pilot. And back then, just like most people think today, the only way for you to ever become a pilot in the airlines or wherever is to go join the military. And nowadays, that's the furthest thing from the truth actually possible. And I could literally go on for probably 20 minutes just about that. But I really wanted to do that. I also found out that I wasn't talking to the right recruiters now that I know nowadays, because no one would give me a path to get to that. They all wanted me to go on the ground and go to Afghanistan or Iraq. And that wasn't my prerogative and what I wanted to. I wanted to become a pilot. So for some reason, I shelved that idea. And I just put in the back of my mind, well, if I can't join the military, I can never become a pilot. And the funny part about all this was I always heard these stories about my grandfather learning to fly, and he learned to fly in a Cherokee 6. Believe it or not, that is probably not the best airplane to learn to fly.
Wow.
But I have trained a handful of people flying a Cherokee 6 because it's one of my favorite aircraft. I know it is possible to do. And after my grandfather passed away, I found his logbook. And this was, I guess, in probably 2012 or 2013, somewhere around there. Maybe take that back. 2010 or 2011, because it was before my son was born. So it had to have been 2010. I know that was a long way to get there, but I figured it out. So in 2010, I found his logbook after he passed away. And it just kind of reminded me of all the reasons why he told me he stopped. And he told me he stopped flying for various reasons. The biggest one was my grandmother didn't want him to go fly with me in the airplane. And she said, well, if you go get yourself killed, that's fine. But if you go get my grandson killed, that's not okay, blah, blah, blah. As we all know, flying is extremely safe, especially even in small aircraft. Nonetheless, he had to quit flying. And after I found that logbook of his, after he passed away, I was like, you know what? I should go look into this. And I found out there's a local place near me that did flight training. So I told all my friends and family one Christmas in December of 2013, December 2013, hey, I want gift certificates to go learn how to fly. And I ended up getting like $2,500 worth of gift certificates from friends, from family, from everybody I knew, which was a great lift. It paid for a quarter of my flight training at that point. And I just started off there. So that's kind of the long version story of how I got into aviation originally.
Already you're starting out of the gate with bringing the gold. Tell us a little bit about what your flight training journey was like and any barriers that maybe came up along the way.
Yeah, there was a whole bunch of barriers in flight training. I would say the biggest one was money. I wasn't as successful as I am today, if you want to call it that. I was an independent auto adjuster at that time, and I had a new baby. Austin was just a couple years old at that point. I just started renting my first house. I was about to buy my first house, and about the same time I started flight training, I ended up buying that first house. So it was really a difficult time for me, to be honest. financially, but I had this $2,500 worth of gift certificates that I needed to go use. So I finished that up and I did what any sane person would do, and I just used credit cards and paid for the rest of it. What was really good about that, though, it forced me, because I only had a finite amount of money on my credit card limits that I could actually spend. It forced me to go study and go crazy with my flight training journey. I would wake up in the morning, and I remember I would be laying in bed, and I used to have blinds right behind my bed. And I would literally have a flight that morning, and I would open the blinds to make sure there's no clouds in the air. And it was a really special experience. But I would say the biggest barrier was that money. So as soon as I ran out of money, I luckily was at the same time I got my private pilot certificate. And I really wanted to be an overachiever with flying, because in every other bit of my academic life, I didn't do very well. I mean, I was a straight C student. They say C's get degrees. I never got my degree. Dropped out of college after about a month, which was fantastic for me, not for my parents, and worked 4 or 5 jobs. So I wanted to make sure that I actually tried on this particular time, and I did. So I soloed, I think, at 10 or 11 or 12 hours, something around there. And I was really motivated by this 40 hours that the FAA says is their minimum. So I really wanted to hit 40 hours, and I thought I would get close. I ended up getting 41 and a half hours, which at that time I was mad that I didn't hit 40 hours. And now in retrospect, I only know a handful of people that have done that. And it was remarkable for me to actually get it done that fast. And a lot of that had to do with my flight instructor. I mean, I had a great flight instructor, and he and I were friends for a little while, and unfortunately we don't quite talk anymore. But it was a fantastic relationship learning to fly with him, and the biggest barrier was that money.
So tell us a little bit about your experience as a flight instructor.
I strictly wanted to become a flight instructor originally, just so I can go teach my son to fly one day. I figured it would take me, 10 years or 15 years before I go get my flight instructor certificates, and I would just take my time, and that would be it. But I kind of fell in love with flying, just like all of us have, and many people who listen to this podcast have, right? So I decided I would do what any sane person would do, and I'm going to go buy an airplane and go start a flight school with one airplane. And I'm going to go rent a closet at Riverside Airport for $96 a month, and I'm going to take clothes off of a rack. And that's going to be our entire flight school. We're going to sell drinks and cookies and snacks and hopefully some flight training. And we would have like one flight a week for months. And eventually that turned into me flying a little bit more often, because, now maybe I should finally finish my instrument rating. I can supplement the cost. I was still working my other career at the time. I was an insurance appraiser, and I decided I would continue on. And then one day the business was doing well enough, and we had a couple more aircraft, and I said, I think I'm going to quit my other job. So I took like an 85% pay cut and just jumped headfirst into running a flight school. And over running the flight school, like I said, I didn't want to be a flight instructor really at all. I didn't want to have, everyone says students try to kill me. And I think that's the furthest thing from the truth. I've never had a student try to kill me. It's because I know how to teach them properly. I don't know, that'll probably get people mad at me over that. But I think it's really true. I think if you teach people the proper ways on how to hand off controls and what to do and not do in the cockpit, you will never have a student tried to kill me experience, which I still have never had. And I'm proud of that, to be honest. Besides all of that, so I ended up working at the flight school, and I realized that none of the flight instructors respected me, because I wasn't one of them. And I'm sure they respected me as the owner of the company and the guy who signs all their paychecks, and that's one thing. But if I tried to tell them about teaching or something that I disagreed with that they were doing, they didn't respect that nor listen to me half the time. So I basically ended up getting my flight instructor certificate strictly to basically be able to tell my employees what they're doing wrong and have them respect me. And that was really why it happened. And then ended up, after I got my flight instructor certificate, my son ended up being my first student, even at whatever he was, 10 years old or whatever. It ended up still working out. I still worked out and made sure that he was my first student, and that was really important to me.
So he knows how to fly then, your son?
I mean, he's 14 now. He can land an airplane. He can take off. He's still pretty bad at the radios, to be honest, but he can fly.
Right on.
He hasn't landed in a while. We don't fly as much as I used to when I used to own the flight schools. And he was telling me this the other day. He said, Dad, we need to go fly some more often. And we never do. I said, I know, you're totally right. We used to go fly to lunch all the time and get the $100 burger or in my case, a $200 steak sandwich from Camarillo. And
yeah, well, it's too easy when you're at the airport. to go flying. I mean, that's half the reason a business at the airport is tough for me, is that, do you want to go fly? Yeah, let's go. Forget the business. So
I kind of want to move my office.
Yeah, me too. I say that, but given half the chance, I mean, I'm going to the airport willy-nilly. I mean, that's the next step. So
Absolutely.
Don't listen to me. Whatever I say is not what I'm doing. Like, that's not a thing. Okay, so let's kind of we did cover the flight school, and that's fantastic, and it really doves into so much of the finances. I mean, everything we've talked about is finance or business related. So at some point, you've got to look in the mirror and go, well, this path seems to be going somewhere. At what point did you realize solving the financial barrier to flight training was in your plans or mission somewhere down the line?
It was never in my plans nor mission to start with. I figured people would figure out how to get money and figure out how to learn to fly just like I did. And that was not as easy as I thought it would be. And I don't come from a ton of money, so it wasn't easy for me, right? But it definitely was doable. So I just figured everybody will figure it out. Well, what I realized is when I had new students coming in, they would all complain about the money, and a lot of people are not as motivated as I was to, one second,
I was fixing to run, bro. Like I thought that was on my end. Like I'm gone.
No. I'm next to PCH, so I can always hear it. I know it comes through. Oh, where was I? Well, yeah, the biggest barrier for a lot of people is money. And not everybody is going to have the tenacity to go out there and absolutely crush it just to go hit this one dream that they have. It might not be a big enough dream for them. It might not have impacted them in a certain way yet. So I had to figure out a way, well, how do I get people money? It was not to start a finance company, I'll tell you that. That was not on my radar whatsoever. The first thing I did is I called all the places. I called Synchrony Bank. I said, hey, I know you finance mattresses. Will you finance my flight students? I did that, which is kind of funny now that I'm saying it out loud. I don't know if I've ever told anybody that I did that before. So it's a first for your podcast. But I called every bank I could. I called my local bank. I called Chase. And then I finally talked to Flight Training Finance. I said, hey, you guys do just private pilot or just instrument, just for people who are doing this as a hobby? Is there any way you can do a full zero to hero commercial program? They're like, nope, that's not what we do. I said, okay, no problem. So then I found this other place and they said they would do it, but it ended up being just a personal loan place. But they had like a max limit of $25,000 or $35,000. I'm like, okay, well, that doesn't do anything for anybody. That kind of screws us still. Like we still can't finish. My program at the time, I think, was like 60 or 65,000. So it was pretty cheap. And nowadays it's over 80,000, even at my old school. And it was hard. So I couldn't find anybody. Nobody would finance this. So I reached out to one of my friends. His name's Anthony Gerasi. He's my business partner here at Stratus. And I said, hey, you own a law firm that specializes in private finance law. I really need help putting together a contract because I'm going to underwrite and I'm going to do in-house financing for these students. I'm just going to give them like credit and they can pay me over time. And that sounded like a great idea at the time. And now in retrospect, I look back and it was a crazy idea. And one that I'm glad I kind of got stopped in my tracks for, because I would have probably lost a lot of money, especially knowing what I know now about what finance is like. So Anthony said, yes, he would help me. And I said, but I don't really want to pay you. You're my friend. Can you just kind of really help me? And he was like, fine, Brandon, just shut up and I'll help you. So then he comes back over to my office a couple weeks later and he says, and by the way, I was training him how to fly in a Cherokee 6 at this time. He said, he soloed in a 172, I think, and then I finished him up in the Cherokee 6. And he said, oh, we're not going to do your plan. I was like, what are you talking about? I need help. He said, I have a better one. And we go in my whiteboard in my office and he draws out this plan for Stratus Financial on my whiteboard. And I have the picture somewhere, and I've been looking for it. It's got to be in an old phone somewhere. And he draws out this Stratus Financial plan, and I get really excited. I said, that sounds fantastic, Anthony. It sounds like we need about $1 million to get this thing off the ground. And luckily, he said, well, I got that covered in one way or another. We'll figure it out. I said, you think we'll figure it out? Sure. I said, I've got a little bit of cash. You got some cash. Let's do this. So we ended up starting Stratus Financial after that. And the goal was to be 4 pilots, by pilots. And the by pilots is me and Anthony. We're both pilots. Anthony's even a ground instructor and an IGI. Those are 2 ratings I don't have, and he's really proud that he does, and I don't. But outside of that, I have a whole bunch of other ones he does not have. And I like to mess with him, so I hope he listens to this later on, Anthony.
We will make sure of that.
Yeah, we will. We will. I'm going to see him in about an hour, so I will tell him about this.
Yeah,
no, but it was kind of a fantastic journey, just being able to help students. And it took 6 months before we were able to make our first loan. And now we've helped over, well, don't quote me on the exact number, but somewhere around 1,000 pilots we've helped get them going. So that is just an amazing thing to me. We work with over 400 flight schools across North America now, and a lot of those flight schools have multiple locations. So I bet you if I count up everything, there's over 500 flight schools in North America that have our financing as an option. And I'm just excited for the future, and I want to build more pilots. I want to do 1,000 a year. That would be amazing.
There it is. How do you balance being a fintech company that's kind of got to have a life all of itself with being an aviation focused company? Where do you put those two together?
Yeah, that's a really interesting question, and I've struggled with it actually. I started out as the aviation guy in the business, right? Anthony was the lawyer guy, and he handled that stuff. He handled different types of loans before, and that wasn't my wheelhouse. And he stuck in his, and I stuck in mine for a long time. I built the entire aviation program on how to manage the risk, and I knew all the shady things that flight schools can do or have done in the past 30, 40 years of how they can get over the student or the finance company. So I built in a bunch of safeguards to protect our company, protect our investors, and of course protect the students, because they're going to get screwed by some of these schools too, no matter how much we vet them. So I set in a lot of safeguards to do that, and now our underwriting manual for flight schools alone is 86 pages, and if you don't abide by our rules, you get kicked out, and we won't fund your students any longer. So we really look out for these students, and that was done originally. Nowadays, my role has transitioned from that to now I manage the fintech part of the company. I manage the technology. I manage the way that money has to flow from Wall Street and from our fund investors to our company, and the way to put all that together. So I've really turned into the finance guy of the business. Anthony stayed in his lane with high level and legal and all of that stuff. And we hired an amazing crew on the flight school side that actually we have pilots in that team that underwrites all our flight schools. And I've transitioned into managing those relationships on Wall Street. And it's actually something I've become, I think, fairly good at, and I really enjoy more than I expected to, because I really like being outside and being in an aircraft, right? And not necessarily just being in an office by myself like I am today. I've got a couple people in the other office behind me, but in general, I really like to be out, and I like to be around people. And part of the reason why I want to do podcasts like this and come on and talk to great people, right? But I ended up loving the fintechy side. I mean, everybody thinks it's all sexy and glamorous. You're talking about millions of dollars, and sure, that's great, but it's a lot harder than you think it is. You're literally doing deals and managing people's expectations. And I'll tell you, there's one thing that I've noticed is the number one key to relationships, and it's to always set expectations and always be upfront and direct with people. And no matter if you have to tell them something good or something bad. And as long as you have that direct communication, I think you're going to have a great relationship with people, including with banks. Everyone thinks you need to make sure that you sound perfect to them all the time. I'll tell you this, no one sounds perfect to anybody all the time. And the same thing happens with banks. One of my favorite things that I quote all the time, and I've done it on Aviation Mentors podcast. I've done all over the place. I say the number one way to ruin a relationship is unmet expectations. I mean, that counts for every type of relationship you have. That counts for business, personal, every type of relationship in general. And just owning up to it. You just have to be direct, and it ends up making a great life for yourself, and you'll feel better. There's less stress at night.
Let's take a quick break from this conversation to tell you about one of our wonderful show supporters. Here's something every pilot knows. Finding sunglasses that actually work with your headset is nearly impossible. That's why I'm super excited to tell you about Flight Sunglasses, our newest show supporter. Flight gets it. They're made by pilots for pilots using wafer-thin carbon fiber, the same material we trust to build our aircraft. No more broken headset seals, no more pressure points, just crystal clear vision and all-day comfort, whether you're in the cockpit or on the ground. Head over to flight.aero and join their mailing list for $20 off your first pair. That's FLYTE.aero. Sunglasses designed for pilots, worn by everyone. And now, back to the conversation.
What makes Stratus Financial different from traditional lenders or even to aviation financing programs? What's that major difference?
Yeah, Stratus Financial is much different than other lenders in our space and any traditional bank. You cannot go get a lot of money. Remember when I was talking about earlier in the episode, I said I had to use my credit card, and I had like $8,000 on my credit card. Well, most people, if they have $8,000 available on a credit card, that's quite a bit. I would say as you get older, you might have $25,000 limits, things like that, but that's not a normal thing for most people to have over their lifetime. And if they do have one or two credit cards, maybe that's what they have as their safety net. They're not going to go use that and be stupid and crazy like I was. So we used to say the biggest competitor to us is the credit card. I mean, literally, that's it. If you go to a community bank or you go to Chase or you go to Wells Fargo and you say, hey, I want a personal loan, they're going to laugh at you. You might get 10 grand if you have a long-standing relationship and a ton of money in that bank. And maybe if you have a CD already on account with them. That's the only way you're going to go get a loan from a traditional bank. Outside of that, credit unions, you would think, oh, I can go do that. Actually, a credit union, you can get a personal loan. Most personal loans, you can even go to Lending Club or Lending Tree, some of these really large fintechs online, and their maximum loan amounts are typically $25,000 or $35,000, and you better make amazing income, you better have low debt, and you better own real estate. And by the way, if you don't own real estate, just being on your credit report, it lowers your credit rating on all of these fintechs that you go to. They use that as a primary driver. So if you're unfamiliar with that and you don't own a house, go buy a house, get a mortgage, put on your credit report. It'll do a lot more for you than you would ever even imagine. It doesn't just correlate into debt or an asset. It really correlates into being a better borrower, because 85% of people who own homes are better borrowers. Don't quote me on the exact statistic on that, but it's something close to that. Besides that, there's been a couple other lenders in our industry. They've come and gone. They didn't know the flight school industry very well. One of them left, I guess it's been a year and a half ago now. And I think there's one or two that might be around that work with like 20 or 30 flight schools. And they're basically community banks that dabble in this because they're bank presidents like Aviation. But they don't have a big enough balance sheet. They're not going to go borrow the money from Wall Street like we do. They're not going to do the things that you need to do to grow a successful company. The only path is really doing it the way that we're doing it. And right now, I don't see anyone that's meaningfully trying to get into our industry whatsoever. And I know all the reasons why they don't, but there's also a few reasons why you should. You get to help a lot of people. Everyone thinks owning a finance company, you get to be a millionaire every day of your life, and that's simply not true. You can create some success, and trust me, I've created there's been lots of awards and different things like that have been absolutely amazing, but it's not all glamour. Owning your own company, and you guys probably know the same. There's ups and downs and everything. But I will tell you that it's incredibly rewarding right now, where we're at. And just being able to help as many people as we're helping on a daily basis, it's phenomenal.
We'll talk about a little bit about how you help them beyond finances, because Stratus Financial really builds in some great value for the students. And some of that is the free ground school, the Shepherd Air Test Prep. I mean, you've got so many cool things. We'll talk about one of the really cool things, Lightspeed Aviation as well. You can bundle headsets into the loans. Now, that's forward thinking as to what a student is going to need to be successful. Tell us how all that came on your radar and how you decided to package those things together and why.
Yeah, so start out with the Lightspeed partnership. Lightspeed's been my favorite headset for many years now. I like them better than Bose. Not that I'm against Bose whatsoever. It's just I use gel in my hair, and their little fuzzy thing on top gets all saturated with the gel in my hair, and it bugs me. Lightspeed didn't do that, and that's why I went with that. If they'd come out with a little patch, I'd probably go with Bose too. Just so if they're listening, you know the reason why. I prefer the other one. It's literally a piece of felt that's the damaging factor for me. And they didn't even correct it in the brand new Bose A30, unfortunately. Even though it's a good headset, I use it too. So I created the relationship, and actually my team did. I can't take all the credit. I can just take the final credit from talking to their president and finalizing the deal details. But we created that relationship because I really like them, and I really want to see what we can do for pilots. I think that's just the beginning. Eventually, we want to be able to package these things, all different types of pilot supplies in for a student. As for Shepherd Air and for Gold Seal, I wanted to provide students a secondary outlet and show them, hey, we're here for you. I want you to pass as much as you want to pass. Here's Shepherd Air. We'll pay for every single version of Shepherd Air for you. And all you got to do is tell them or tell us you need the code. We'll send a message over to Shepherd Air, and they'll give us a code, and we'll send it over to you. It'll be free of charge for you if you have a loan with us. And we wanted to do that because we care about them succeeding. Gold Seal Ground School, we've been doing that for years with them. And Gold Seal is how I practice my private, so it had a special location in my heart. And I met with Russ Still. I went over to his office. He took me to lunch. He refused to let me pay for anything, and showed me around his studio, handed me a bunch of shirts, and stand-up guy. We did a little recording session when we were there. It was just so cool. I like to support people who support me and support aviation and support growth of aviation. Just like we now have a partnership with King Schools. We don't have anything out yet, but we can refer for programs over to King Schools. They've been great partners with us. The Kings came over to our Aero Summit event, and they were our keynote speakers. They brought their Falcon jet, which was absolutely awesome. Little things that we do. We also send birthday cards, and we send digital, and we send them in the mail. Birthday cards and congratulations every time they get a pilot certificate. After they get their private, we scrub the FAA database all the time on all of our borrowers to find out when they're progressing through programs. So we automatically know when it happens. And it may be not automatic, maybe it's a couple weeks later after the FAA database updates, but we send them cards and notes and congratulations, and we want them to know, hey, we're monitoring your progress because we care about it, and we want to make sure that you succeed, and we're really excited for your future. So those are some little things and some big things that we do for our borrowers.
FinTech, there's outside the of aviation part.
Would not do.
Yeah, there's the tech part of FinTech coming in. We scrape the data from the FAA website to send you a birthday or a congratulations. That is
automatically. It happens once a week.
Oh, beautiful. So let's talk a little bit about the future that these individuals might have. We'll cover a little bit about the industry outlook and the pilot shortage. Jacob?
Sure. Boeing's forecasting 660,000 new pilots globally, right, by 2044. What's your take on that number or the numbers that the industry has supplied up to this point?
Yeah, I think Boeing has... I use Boeing's numbers all the time, by the way. And I also have been looking at Boeing's numbers because they put them out once a year. And they put a new forecast for the next 20 years. If I would have known about that question, I would have had this ahead of time. But I've actually looked and checked to see what the last 15 or 20 years has done and plotted it out to find out exactly how they've changed their outlook. And by the way, they change their outlook every year. I started noticing because during COVID, it started skyrocketing. And then post-COVID, after the massive hiring boom happened, 2021, 2022, I saw it start dropping. And it dropped. It actually went, I believe it went up this year. I'd have to double check that answer. If you go and look at it from the past 10 years in a row, it actually creates an upward trend line, which I think is really positive for the industry. So I think looking at data like that, rather than just looking at it from the past 3 years, if I look at the past 3 years, it looks like aviation is going down. And that's what a whole bunch of people have told me that are looking for jobs and all this other stuff. And it's just BS. You need to look at the long-term trend lines and what aviation is doing. And that's what we do. We're not looking at what's going up and down over 1 year. Sure, our borrowers might have trouble getting a job for the next 1 year or 6 months because of macroeconomics. That's going to come and go and ebb and flow in every single area of the world. I mean, it's not just our industry. So I look at trend lines and see where aviation is going. And it is going up in more ways than one. And the pun is always intended when it has to do with flying. But besides that, there's some also key people out there like Kit Darby, who's been putting out a lot of data and that really pushes and shows us how much the airlines are hiring today. They're hiring more than they ever hired before when you look at historical norms. So there is a pilot shortage still today. And when you go listen to all the ALPAs and all of the unions out there, they all say there's no pilot shortage. There's no pilot shortage. I always look at people's interest. Like, what is in somebody's interest on the things they're saying publicly, right? And it's really easy to know what best interest for a pilot union is. It's to have the least amount of pilots so you can get the highest amount of money per pilot, which is great for our industry. I mean, back in 2018 or 2016, pilots were making 50, 60 grand a year. Now they're making double that at 90 to 100 now. It was at 110. Now it's bumped down to around 90. People are making money. You don't need, and like I said, you have to look and see what people's intentions are. If you look at Boeing's report, they want to sell airplanes, right? So they're also looking at that. But I'll tell you, their report has to be somewhat grounded in reality, considering what's going on with Boeing over the years. And then also we have to look and see, okay, well, if that's the demand for pilots, where are they getting that data from? And obviously it's from the orders, and it's from the data they're getting from their airline partners that they make these planes for. So I really think that their data is pretty good. And I think trending over the years, I think it's fantastic. And I don't know if I look back 20 years ago, and does that correlate? I'm not sure. Maybe I should look into that. I'll send you the data on it. But that'd be a really interesting one. Did 20 years ago Boeing's report correlate with today's reality? And my best guess is yes, based on kind of what I've looked at in the past.
That's going to be a great resolution to see. Stand by for that, by the way. We have a cliffhanger. So we've talked about commercial aviation. Let's go and talk about business aviation, which is kind of like an underserved area. Everybody talks about being a pilot. It's always with the airlines that I hear of. Tell us a little bit about why business aviation might be an exciting career path.
You don't have to necessarily become a pilot to be in business aviation. There's a lot of people that might not be able to become pilots. They might have difficulty with some part of their body or mental acuity or whatever it may be. Maybe you can't do that. So if you can become a pilot, that's obviously a fantastic thing. It's something I'm really passionate about, as everyone probably understands from listening on here. But I think that there's so many opportunities in business aviation. I mean, you could work for publications like Aviation. You could do podcasting like what we're doing today and on my podcast. You could work in aviation finance. You could work selling aircraft. You could test fly airplanes. There's hundreds of jobs for pilots as well in aviation. Business aviation isn't just that. There's 135 charters. There's 121. I don't know what JSX is under. They're under some subpart where they kind of go under the radar with their under 35 aircraft, but you've got that as well. And then you've got private jet charters, or working for a wealthy family, or going and working for a company like Disney. Or I actually have a friend of mine who went to work for U-Haul, and U-Haul has these Eclipse jets. They fly around and they fly their executives so they can get around. And just going and flying an Eclipse jet all the time, that sounds like a blast. Dropping off your executives at all these locations, it sounds perfect. There's so many things you can do in business aviation. And the best part about that, you can go join NBAA or go to their conference coming up next month, about a month from now, and really go and enjoy and learn about all the different things in business aviation. I mean, fuel providers, you name it, everybody's going to be there. They're also giving out a really cool award there that I really am excited about.
Everybody's going to be there to celebrate this award. I think really that's what the impetus for getting together is, and congratulations on that, by the way. Tell us a little bit about what that means to you. And, of course, we're talking about the NBAA under 40.
It is, yeah. NBAA 40 under 40. I did not think I would win it for this year. I've seen some of the people that have won it in the past years, and I was just really, really impressed by a lot of these people. So to be in that kind of pedigree was pretty impactful for me. There's a lot of awards that you get locally and things like that, and those are one thing. But that one is in my industry that I care so much about, and I was really surprised. So, it moved me. I get goosebumps every time I talk about it. I'm looking forward to going there. They're asking me to do some mentoring with younger entrepreneurs, and I'm gonna kind of step into that as well and try to help more people. That is always my goal. I just want to help more people in aviation, whether that's pilots or people in business aviation. Either way is great for me. I'm really stoked about it.
I love it. Let's talk a little bit about that leadership. So we're going to go on to leadership and culture. And you talk about giving back. Your goal is really just to help people. What part of your leadership or your character best serves that mission? Tell me about one quality that best serves that.
Well, there's a lot of qualities, negative and positive, right, that go into being a leader. And just like being a father, there's a lot of negative and positive qualities that go in, and you learn along the way on what works and what doesn't, and when you screw up, you just own it, just like I talked about earlier on the podcast. But I will say, I think just caring about people from a genuine way and really trying to understand their perspective and why they think this, and don't make them feel like an idiot ever. I always say this in front of everybody, and everyone looks at me like, "What are you talking about?" And I say, "There's no such thing as a dumb question," and that's an old adage, right, that everybody says. But there's a caveat to that. I say there's no such thing as a dumb question because everybody in the room can think you're the dumbest person in the room because you keep on asking these dumb questions. And at the end of the day, you're going to be the only one that asked all of the questions. You're going to now have all the knowledge from this entire room, and you're now going to be the smartest person in the room because you asked all the dumb questions. So I try to tell my employees that. I try to tell my son that. I try to talk to my peers about that and just ask the questions. And I try to support those questions when my employees will come up to me and ask me something. And sometimes I won't even give them the answer. I'll ask them a question back and feed that into them until they can figure it out. Because sometimes the answer is not just me giving them the answer, because that's half of it. The other half is using some critical thinking to actually get to that answer and to know the why behind whatever that answer is. And I think that's what creates a good leader and somebody who your employees will respect over time.
That's a beautiful answer.
The Aviators Mentors podcast, how did that project get started? How did you fall into that, or how did that come to be?
In 2016, I did my first trip to Oshkosh and I flew my own 172 there with my son, and his mother came with me at that time. And we ended up flying out there, and I was a big fan of podcasts. And there was a podcast that I really enjoyed, and he doesn't post very much anymore, but it's the Why We Fly podcast by Mike Harris. And it was one of my favorite podcasts, and I thought that he was a superstar, even though he had 8 episodes out. And I emailed him, and I was like, oh my gosh, this guy actually responded to me. I couldn't believe it. 8 episodes, guys. And I look back, and I'm like, he was just starting. I couldn't and now we're really, really good friends. So it started off with that. And I said, hey, are you going to Oshkosh? I would love to meet you. And he said, no, I'm not going, but if you want to record an episode for me. I said, how do I do it? He said, I don't know. Do you have a mic? I said, no. He said, just use your iPhone and just record it. And then send me the audio link. I said, are you serious? He said, yeah, I can work with that. I said, you're crazy, but sounds good to me. So I ended up recording 2 episodes, and they were atrocious. And he posted them. And I still listen. I've listened to him once or twice in the past. I don't know. It's been almost 9 years now, I guess, since we did that. And that was fun. And I always thought this was a lot of fun. I really like talking and sharing knowledge, but I don't have enough knowledge. Once I have enough knowledge, I think I'll do this. So then I'm working at my flight school. I have my 141 program set up. I've been flight training for a while. I really understand what students are going through. I'm seeing them happen day after day on what their challenges are. So I'm thinking, you know what? I think I finally have the knowledge to do this. I think I'm going to start. I can either do it one of 2 ways. I can either do it with a new person every week, or I can get a co-host, somebody who I trust and like, and that's Carson, who's my co-host. And him and I just start the podcast, and I'll tell you the first few episodes were atrocious. And we actually recorded the intro and came up with the intros. This was before AI, by ourselves in the trailer that we were staying at in Oshkosh. I guess 3 or 4 years ago at this point now. And we ended up starting off there and record the first episode, and it was bad. And we've just kept on recording from there. And now I think we're about to hit 200 episodes. We're really close to that if we haven't hit it yet. And I'm pretty excited for the future. It's been wild. I know Carson has 1.2 or 1.3 million views on a Facebook clip that he got recently. And I'm approaching, I think, 1.1 on one that I just got recently. And there's lots of other ones with 100,000 views or likes or hates, whatever you want to call them, talking about fun things. But I have to say, I really enjoy the podcast. It's one of my favorite things to do every week when we record. We started out with two a week, and now we do 1 a week, because doing 100 episodes in a year was a lot of work. Luckily, we've got a fantastic back end that helps us set everything up and produces it for us. Otherwise, I don't know how I would get it done. But I absolutely love it. And if anybody's interested, you can check out Aviation Mentors. You can go to aviationmentors.com, or you can go anywhere podcasts are available, including Spotify and Apple and everything else.
Awesome. Well, so nearly 200 episodes in. What role do you think podcast, digital media play today in inspiring the next generations of pilots and aviation professionals?
Well, I can't speak directly for mine because I don't know if it's impacted anyone. Hopefully it has, and that's been the goal. No, it really has impacted some people. I've had some people reach out to me and send really, really nice emails or LinkedIn posts to me, and it's fantastic just feeling that. I mean, like the goosebumps thing happens all the time because you're really helping people. But I will say that podcasting, and I'll speak from my experience, just listening to all the different podcasts when I was learning to fly transformed the way that my passion was for aviation. It started with Mike Harris's podcast. There were also some other ones about, I can't remember the guy's name, but basically it was owner maintenance on airplane, something Showalter. I can't remember his name right now, but he was in the Smoky Mountains, and this guy had the calmest, coolest voice. And he was an A&P and talked about owner maintenance. And I had my airplane at that time, and I was really interested in that because I want to save money. I didn't have any. And do my own oil changes and change my own tires and things like that I would never do for myself on a car. But I would do it on an airplane for some reason. And just, I really think that podcasting and media itself is transforming in positives and sometimes negative ways when you see people jump out of airplanes and crash them intentionally for views. But honestly, it just brings awareness to the industry and brings awareness to flight and this amazing thing that we all love to do, which is general aviation.
Lightning round. 3 questions. Answer only, no context. You ready? All right. What's your favorite in-flight snack?
Peanuts.
If you could fly any aircraft that's existed, what would you fly?
Spruce Goose.
Oh. Nice. All right, last one. If you could take anybody flying with you, who would your dream co-pilot be?
Harrison Ford.
Win the Spruce Goose. I love it. Now that is nuts. That's wonderful. Nicely done.
What What a great conversation. From learning to fly in honor of his grandfather to helping over 1,000 pilots get their start, Brandon's story reminds us that the path to the cockpit doesn't have to be impossible. We want to thank you for spending your time with us today. If you've enjoyed this episode, please take a moment to subscribe to the Future in Flight podcast and leave us a review. It really helps other aviation enthusiasts find the show. And speaking of shows, Brandon hosts his own podcast, Aviation Mentors, where he and co-host Carson dive deep into what it takes to build a career in the skies. You can find Aviation Mentors on all major podcast platforms. Before we close out, one more reminder about the Affordable Flying Expo happening November 6th through the 8th at the Sun and Fun Aerospace Expo grounds in Lakeland, Florida. If you're a member of aviation associations like the EAA, RAF, AOPA, the 99s, or WAI, you'll receive discounted adult admission. Just use code AFE2025 at checkout when you visit affordableflying.net/attend. Again, that's affordableflying.net/attend. Until next time, we'll see you out there and up there.